Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Ms. Mucko.
Here.
Mr. Olson. Mr. Walker. Mr. Erkins.
Here.
Mr. Esser.
Here.
Okay, are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Somebody has it on.
It's on. We're recording, correct?
Seeing none, moving forward. I'm sure you'll give an update about the Chamber Leadership Conference. Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, on to approval of minutes dated March 18th.
I'll make a motion to approve our minutes from our meeting on March 18th, 2024.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, monthly and activity and financial report.
Thank you. Board, Madam Chair, thank you for your time today. I've got some updates here for the group and I'll kind of get into our operating results for March 2024. Before I get going, I want to take a minute to recognize National Administrative Professionals Day. So we are going to recognize our very own Anna Mills and give you a round of applause and say thank you for everything you do for us. A little gift and a card for you, just to say thank you for everything that you do. We could not make it happen without you. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you for
Thank you to all the administrative professionals.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Again, starting out just how I do each month with a few highlights from some of the events over the past month. A couple of the events on the screen here, Ada County Lincoln Day Banquet. That we served about 701 meals for that event. The Idaho Wild Sheep Banquet, where it was about 970 meals for that event. And then a Tree Fork Fam Lunch, which I won't speak too much to because I know Allie has got it included in her presentation, but a really great event. Can't tell you just how good Boise showed. I know I saw TM during that week and just downtown Boise had a vibrancy that I have never almost seen ever before. And I've been here my whole life. So very, very cool. Pardon me, I've got a little sore throat or a throat issue this morning. So appreciate you just bearing with me, and if you can't hear, I'll try to speak up. Want to take a minute before I move slides as well to recognize we have a Rose Award finalist that has been nominated in one of the categories, and that's Sean McKee from our operations team. And we will find out this next week if Sean is the winner because he is down to the top 3. So I hope our votes have gotten him over the top, and I want to take a minute to recognize him and his efforts as well. Just a few operational updates from a staffing side. We have hired a new senior accountant, Zachary Potts. He is downstairs learning and getting acclimated very quickly, taking over cash receipts. We've continued to build the finance department up as we've had a little turnover in that area. Our total staffing, very close to where it was pre-COVID, is that 230 number. We're usually right between 230 and 240, depending on time of month, time of year. And again, a lot of BSU students in that part-time on call. We're still sitting at about 70 plus full-time employees in that number. From the event side, we had 22 total events in March, which was interesting as I looked back at the history. We've had 22 events in 2022 in March, 2023 in March, and now in 2024. So as we get into the finances, pay attention to that because the same number of events, I've spoke to the board about this before, revenue managing the space, we continue to do a really good job there. Some of our larger events, Boise Regional Realtors, Idaho Wild Sheep Foundation, and Boise Flower and Garden, and I mentioned Tree Fork. All really great whole mix of different events, from conventions to conferences, and then some large banquets as well as a citywide. So great month. As you can look over behind you here, and you guys are welcome to help yourself and try them out. The guests are as well that have shown up. I'm surprised we didn't have a bigger turnout after I said that we were going to have some pastries and some in-house treats. This is the quality of what we're doing in-house. The team this morning, I went down into the kitchen. We're putting these together, and just the quality, the display, the presentation is something that is a step above where I see when I go to conventions. This does not come out of those normal convention kitchens. So take a minute, if you please help yourself to them. They are for the people that have attended as well. And then the staff will eat whatever's left over. I can promise they will get used up. So Saturday, March 9th, we served a total of 1,480 guests. So again, we had Democratic Party in for 1,000, St. Joe's Crab Feed over on the east side, and Sports Clips having an employee party at the same time. Those are the ones that we tend to really pay attention to, making sure we have the staffing levels needed to service that many different meals happening at once. Sometimes they have 3 different meals going on. In that case, that was the situation here. which can really strain the kitchen, make sure that we're using both kitchens in an efficient way to be able to service out of those. So having 2 commercial kitchens on a night like that is absolutely needed, so. Staff activity, we did a exec team active shooter training with the FBI. Brandon Doty, our safety security manager, has a very close working relationship with the FBI, local emergency response teams. And they came in at a very high level and kind of spoke to us about large facilities, large events, and kind of what we can do from an executive side to continue to build some resiliency, build relationships, and make sure that we are protecting our staff, our guests, and the asset itself, in the active shooter scenario. And again, hope that doesn't happen, but at the end of the day, the world is where it is today. We want to be prepared. It is time well spent. We spent an exec team meeting, just meeting with the FBI and having them educate us a little bit. We went to the Chamber Leadership Conference, and this was one that was all dedicated around energy. And I know 2 of the board members in the room today joined us on that. A lot of interesting topics. Again, some of it, depending on if you're an energy nerd, you might find a little dry. Interesting takeaways. There were some components there about how long it takes for transmission lines to be installed into existence, basically from a permitting, planning, procurement side of things. It can take upwards of 20 years. And so the needs of the future was a kind of a topic, and makes me think about what we're going to do as a convention center as energy continues to be a topic and people are continuing to draw with electric vehicles. I think the takeaway at the end was a really good one which is balance. I think that was one of the big takeaways from the group as a whole, finding ways that we can use all of, whether it's hydro, whether that's battery, whether that's wind, solar, and then coal even, to just make sure that we have that level of resiliency and redundancy in our grid. So a lot of
Windmills on the roof.
windmills on it. Honestly, at one point in time, and it is something that I probably gonna continue to look at, is on top of our roof, we have the opportunity to put solar panels. There was something that was mentioned at that conference about solar panels now picking up about, I think it was 15% or so efficiency with the ability to take light from the bottom side. So they've now taken off that bottom part of a solar panel, and I'm surprised it took this long to figure that out, but they can absorb light from the bottom half as well, and just making them more efficient, more resilient from a solar side. So having a rooftop as large as ours, there might be an opportunity, and there was, I remember back in, I think it was 2016, 17, I met with companies that were interested in possibly installing solar on top of our roof. So we'll continue to explore those opportunities. But from an energy standpoint, a great conference. I just want to recognize the chamber, Bobby Joe and her team. She did an outstanding job organizing that conference. I know that they've had some turnover on their team, but they all pulled together and put down a really great conference. There was a great turnout all the way to the very end. I don't know if that was the Southwest Airlines tickets that they gave away, that they did a raffle that tried to incentivize people to stay through the very end. But there was more new people this year than I've ever seen before. When we asked how many people were new for their first time, rose their hand. It's really great to see that many different sectors come together and just share information and be able to network in a very positive way. Different politicians from all sides of the aisle, very positive overall. So great. If you guys have any comments, please feel free to add to that.
You summed it up pretty good.
All right.
Yeah, I left the conference thinking, boy, isn't there a lot of startup opportunities in the energy sector?
There was one gentleman that brought that up, and then I was thinking the exact same thing, is when you have this level of a gap between being able to provide a service like that, business people fill that gap usually and find a way to make a profit off that. And I think there's an opportunity here for other companies to come into Idaho and really bridge that gap between whether it's transformers or even just the permitting side of it. I think there was a lot of conversations around that of how to expedite some of that. So I think a lot of good will come from it. But again, very proud. Thank you guys for the opportunity to support that for our team. So IAVM Region 4, I leave this Sunday to Tacoma. So this is that International Association of Venue Managers Conference where I get a chance to go speak to my other counterparts from all over the Northwest, even parts of Canada as well. And we've got about 150 attendees attending. Most of that is mid-level to CEO level operators at buildings just like ours, if not convention centers, at stadiums, arenas, and a great conference is planned. I've seen the content based around the AI sector. That was also a topic up in the conference up in Sun Valley and continues to be a hot button for the industry in a good and a positive and a challenging way. Looking at some of my IT team, we continue to see, I've learned over my training, phishing attempts where they call you via phone and try to get you to tell information over a voicemail. So AI and what's out there and what the ability to be a risk to an organization is something that we want to be on the front edge of. And I just want to recognize our team as we get educated very, very well. We're using a system called KnowBe4, where it tests us and tests our emails and tries to kind of teach you along the way where if you do step into something you're not looking at it to or from management at Boise Center, if anybody's getting any of these emails, do not click on anything with them. But our team is sending out stuff to test us internally, and it's a great way to catch things before they become a bigger problem, so. Okay, with that, fiscal management continues to be really strong. And I'll speak to this a little bit. These are slides that you're gonna see a little change in some of the slides that you've seen in the past. This is one I would like to possibly change, and you guys will see how I've changed some of these others from more Excel-based type of a spreadsheet approach into more infographics in the future. So this is one that I continue to want to take a look at, and you'll see what I've done to some other slides, and I'll show you the example of what we presented in the past and to what I'm now presenting to the board, and continue to make sure that you're getting the information in a succinct way. But looking again, we're outperforming the revenues on the Boise Center side, continuing to outperform on the district side as well from a hotel standpoint. And then transfers are up there because of a lot of that on the district side due to those projects. And you'll see this in another slide from a capital expenditure side. So we did a lot in January from a CapEx side. And as I talked about, 22 events in March for the last 3 years. March on this one is that dark blue number right there at the top, 1.15 million. We prior year, just over $1 million, had our first $1 million March month last year. This year it went up a little bit more than 10% from year over year. So as you can see, number of events, 2022, we made $613,000. In 2023, just over, actually that number is 898. Depending on start date or end date, you can get up to $1 million. And this is where I'm making sure that we're all reporting. We've switched over to an end date reporting for across the board. So start date, that actually number comes out to about $1 million. But as you can see, 22 events for the last 3 years, continuing to revenue manage the space well and getting a great return on that. We're also outpacing our forecast for the year as well. So fiscal year to date, we're at 3.9 million. Gross profit. This is one I'm really proud of at this point in time of the year, and knowing that we've had some challenges just with staffing and pricing of what that would cost. To staff the building, we are still seeing a 20.2% gross profit margin with the goal for the fiscal year at 15%. And if you take a look again, 22, 23, you're starting to see a leveling off that we really are managing our space well and getting that gross profit margin under control post-COVID. Now, it's not where it was when East was coming online. That is still something that I have a goal for the team to become more efficient as we go forward and see if we can get that number ticking back up to where it was prior to the expansion and the post-expansion couple of years, where we were picking up a lot of business. So overall guest experience. This is another one that I continue to see just blows my mind every time I pull it. It is one that, as I tell people when I fill out these surveys, it's hard for me to give a 5. And seeing that we get so many 5s is something I'm extremely proud of. And I just want to make sure that the board understands it's real. I mean, you can see it in the comments. This is the how you would rate your overall guest experience. They do individually rate departments. And so you see a little fluctuation outside of that, but this is that overall guest experience that Pat has had as a metric with the board in the past. We have 44 events responding. We've held about 110 events this fiscal year. We're seeing about 11 responses every month, almost exactly 12, 10, 11. This last time we had 33 events on that slide last month. So again, we continue to see a pretty good response return rate from the clients. Me and Julie even talked about seeing if there's an incentive we could try to provide to increase that number a little bit from people, whether that's offering some free AV or something to their next meeting to try to see if we can get a little bit more response rate higher. I want to speak to this slide here because last month I showed some photos, excuse me. And those photos that I showed, one of them at the top here was an espresso bar and a mimosa bar that I was very proud of, that I saw the team had put together their own little touch on it. They got empowered to go do the best that they could and really creatively do it their own way. And extremely proud of what they were able to put together. As I was going through the results from the surveys, it showed up in the survey in that comment. Espresso bar and mimosa bar were absolute hits. The attendees kept talking about both and was certainly a highlight of both mornings. So again, we're continuing to see that what we see as the above and beyond is really coming through on the guest satisfaction surveys. The esports hall in 130 was also a photo I showed you guys, and it came through in as well from IETA and showcasing something that the partnership and the vendors Boise Center on our esports hall in 130, which we had never done before, was particularly impressive. Shout out to the AV, the IT teams that make this happen, because it is something that we collaborate very well with our events and make sure we're able to elevate the experience for the guests. just wanted to highlight those two because I'd shown the photos and they popped up in the surveys right after I'd seen it, so. On room demand and revenues, so lodging room demand, supply is up, demand is down. Again, not a whole lot, but what ends up happening is the ADR is actually carrying forward some of those revenues on that side. And I'll speak to that based on the next slide, where again, occupancy is slightly down from the same month last year, but ADR is up about $1 from the same month year over year from March. So we're continuing to see a little higher revenue, but we are starting to see a leveling off. That supply up and demand down is something that's just always concerning. We got to pay attention to. Keep very close contact with many of our hoteliers and kind of what they're seeing and opportunities we have to work with them, whether that's group rate or just to look at collaborative efforts to where we can continue to bolster some of that. Conventions in the pipeline compared to same period last year, again, up 36 conventions, 14%. This is one that I want to make sure I highlight because room nights is the one that me and Ali have noticed that where there is a little bit of a leveling off. I've spoke to that. So while the team continues to do a great job in getting in conventions into the pipeline, the amount of room nights that's associated with those events or just the total number of room nights associated with events in general is something that we are seeing a leveling off. Ali will speak to it in her slides, but it is something that we are paying attention to. And I think there's an opportunity to either work more closely with hotels on group rates and get some incentives, or vice versa, more focus on the local event side where we tend to make a little higher percentage of revenue. So we will continue to be strategic and balanced in the way that we approach those. Jody's not here for his slide, so I'll go ahead and speak to this one. This is the challenges that we face and then some of the strategies we have to combat those challenges, because we do, like any other organization, face uphill battles. One of those is the transition in our finance department. I want to take a moment to just really thank our finance department. It has been really cool to watch a small but mighty team pull out numbers in a way that we wanted to make sure they were accurate. So as these slides continue to get updated, and you'll see them as you're going through this presentation today, want to make sure the numbers, first of all, are accurate and that we're all presenting and singing from the same hymn book, whether that's end date reporting, whether that's making sure goals and other slides were all reported on. So if I have a director reporting that they're presenting the same information, we are all very much in sync at this point in time. I feel like to where the information is going to be a little bit more easier to understand and a little bit better in the way that we present it going forward. So look forward to that. Want to recognize the finance team with getting month end done, getting audit. We're very close, and I'll speak to that when it comes up on that part there. But again, transitions in the finance department. We've hired our new senior accountant. We've gone and booked some training with Questica, which is our budgeting software, and we'll get that started in July. Joanne had retired from our team, had been kind of we kept her on for projects and implementation of that software. So she's no longer here. So we are going to become just as educated in how to use that software as she was and kind of bring in them for some training. I've got time scheduled in May and in June both to put through training for the entire finance team in Questica. And Momentus, we've continued to invest in that training. So these have really paid dividends as the team continues to get back. And again, I'm going to recognize Panit, who's sitting over here, watching it happen last week, right before I left town to go out of on Friday, making sure how the Excel sheets that Anne-Marie has used in the past sync up with Momentus. It was an uphill battle, and Panit figured it out in a very quick way, a very supportive way. And I think that me and Stephanie were high-fiving at 2:00 on Friday to watch the numbers populate, because we knew we'd gotten all the numbers in the system. Getting it to do the magic that Panit finally made it happen with a lot of these modules there. They pull what's called APIs, or where they tie into the system and then talk to another system or bring two modules together within a system. And it has to put all those numbers together in a nice formulated way. We got it. So now we can continue to report in a very succinct way to the board, but still be able to make sure that numbers are as accurate as they should be and that we're all singing out of the same hymn book, as I've said before. So thank you to the finance team for their last few months of efforts. Just goes a long way. So thank you. And Mike sat in on a meeting this last month with us, and I brought in our insurance carrier, brought in our attorney, and we went over insurance requirements. We want to make sure we're reducing risk. We're doing all the thing by requiring our vendors to have the appropriate level of insurance, making sure that additional insured is listed on those. Does a lot of things, and I don't want to bore the board too much. If you have questions about it, I'd be happy to answer them. But what we are doing is we're continuing to look at kind of a risk matrix approach. So if an IT vendor is never on site, forcing them to have a workers' comp insurance and not being able to use that vendor because of that restriction is something we've run into because we require it. So we've tended to look at BSU, and I thank Julie for helping share information. We've got contacts across the board. And so we brought in the right people. We brought in all of our exec team, management team that manages anything to do with insurance. We all brought up our challenges, what our issues were. And I think there's going to be a really good return on our time spent with admin work that we've just kind of been chasing down a certificate of insurance, and at times either having to make an exception because we needed that service provided anyway. But now we will know and have a much more of a educated approach towards what risk are we accepting when we choose not to have that certificate of insurance with workers' comp. We will know what that does based on a weighted matrix. So more to come on that in the future, but these are two things that I'm very excited as kind of taken over as the new executive director that we are getting taken care of for the team. Okay, any questions on the ED report before I move on? I'm gonna report most of the financials. I'm gonna have Stephanie speak to what she's comfortable with. But again, 2 months into the role, the numbers that she's put together and her team are doing are great. I feel very comfortable to be able to speak to this at this point. And if anything, it's a blessing in disguise, knowing that we've had some turnover. I've had to dig in very deep into the financial side of things, and it has given me a new sense of respect and understanding. I always had that for the team, but just in the amount of data we have and the collection of that data and making sure where it all is going has been a very intriguing part of the transition process for me. So I will go ahead and get the treasurer report started. Stephanie, feel free to speak up.
Go right ahead. Glad your voice is back.
Yes. Yes, that was a little bit of a nerd moment this morning, just not being able to talk, so. This is the slide you guys have looked at in the past. Now, again, you can kind of drive a lot of information out of this little slide here, but it's not to me in a very succinct way. This is the information from last month, and I'm just showing this more of a FYI to show you what I've put together to report on going forward, and then some recommendations to capture this in a little different way for next month, but at least getting the same information to you guys right now. One of those is attendance. So as you're looking at event attendance, this is what I put together as a new slide. This is showing you a pacing of that attendance for March, December, all the way through, so our fiscal year, all the way back to 2021. And again, just shows you kind of where we're at from an attendee month to month. I've highlighted Boise Flower and Garden Show. March, we caught up big time. We were behind on pacing on total attendance for the goal. That happens within month to month within our annual goals, because usually you'll have a month like March. October is a very similar month. November with the Festival of Trees. Those can really move the needle on the number of attendees you've got there. So our fiscal goal is 170,000. Currently, we're at 56,569. We're sitting about 33% 4 months through the year. We're right on pace. So a little easier. Want feedback from the board on how this slide is. If you guys want it a different way, more information, I'm happy to provide it. Economic impact, kind of separating that out again of that just Excel sheet and that high level. This gives it to me in at least a way where I would prefer to look at it this way if I was a board member, tracking the economic impact from month to month, kind of showing that. We can go back and show you annuals and tracking as well. What I wanted to highlight, and I know I met with Mike and Kristen about this, is Destinations International, who is the standard formula for this type of economic reporting, economic impact reporting, is what we've used. And I want to recognize Jennifer McMaster and Allie for their part as they've continued to look into this local LPE model where it takes into account local attendees, which we've adopted for a while. We've adopted that module a while ago. Whereas me and Allie and Jennifer and Stephanie were all breaking apart the numbers and kind of like, how does this impact it? What changed it? We really gathered that it was at the recommendation of Destinations International, DI, who it's their model, their proprietary model, recommended that because we were only capturing prior under Anne Marie, 10% of local attendees and 90% we were not capturing any spend on, just assuming that if they didn't come downtown, they might spend that money and go to lunch somewhere closer to their establishment or where they live or where they work. Destinations International didn't quite agree with that approach and said, we think you guys should be capturing basically all of these local attendees. So as we broke it down, and the analytic part of all of us in particular started breaking it out, and we took a 3-day event and just said, okay, over 3 days of this many local attendees, what would be their average spend? And for a 3-day event, it came out to a little over about $5.20 some cents. That does not come in downtown. If you're parking in a parking garage, you're paying more than $5.20. You're buying a cup of coffee. So we took into account what their recommendation would be, capture the other 90%. What would that look like? And what would that be the spend per attendee? And it came out closer to about $22 a day for a local attendee to come downtown, parking, coffee. That is why I believe Destination International is making the correct recommendation here to capture that additional economic impact that we were not. The number that you're looking on the bottom was our original economic impact that was assigned a lower value to that local attendee spend, or not capturing 90% of them. And that number difference between the 24 actual economic impact is substantial, as you can see, 16,798. Our fiscal year goal has not changed at 35 million. I'd be happy to look at a percentage of increase and increase that goal up to then kind of show you a side by side. And I see some nodding going on. I actually had that in the slide this morning and wanted to make sure before we moved too far, too fast, that you guys understood what I was doing. But kind of showing you a comparative to where that would be percentage wise to the goal. Based on that, we've increased that number by a certain percent, obviously, and we're
Yeah,
seeing
that was
that.
gonna be my next question. It's like, well, the goal was set with the old.
Yep. The goal when I ran it, I want to say was like in the, oh geez, I'm going to say 43, but that's off the top of my head. It might have been about 43% if we change it based on percentage of what we've increased. But again, being 33% through the year, feeling that we're pacing pretty well for our economic impact, and the team's done a great job there. The other slide that I want to talk about before, and this is the one that I would like to add in here, because I think that other original slide, I'll go back to it just for reference here, captures this out of town versus local. Myself, Ally, and I know Stephanie's still learning this side, but we believe that that number in there, it's a little more arbitrary than I care it to be. There were some assumptions being made on who was local based on room nights and who wasn't. I'd rather take away that assumption and just report on room nights. So going forward, I'd like to add one more slide to the very end of this, which would track our room nights and show pacing on how we're doing room night wise, because I think that's that local to out of town component that other report provided you guys that I think is missing out of this new collection of slides. Would you guys agree with that? Would you guys like to see that?
I'd like to see it.
I'll have that in for next month. And again, looking forward to, this is more of the way I'd like to present information going forward. So a little less of that Excel copy paste approach and into this type of approach. This one is the same slide. And again, I'll probably update this one as well by next month, continuing to make a little bit of stride into each one as I dig in. This one, what jumped out to me, and again, this has some value to at least me at a high level. When I tend to look at that green bar is what facilities consider to be fully utilized, based on your dates available, based on the time of year. And we've hit now 2 months, the last 2 months that are peaking up into that. As you can see, historically, we've rarely ever had 2 months hit that in 1 year. We'd have 3 months hitting that if October comes to be true with the forecast, and I believe it would. These are indicators of when you start filling your space, and that means you're looking at, you might need more space. So as we continue to see that track into that green, now months like July, August, or September are going to always be a little bit lagging behind just because of the timing when people want to travel in particular. But I tend to look at those busiest months when we start hitting into that 70, we're maximizing our space for those months. A lot of opportunity again within some other months there. Also, utilization can be a funny thing. You can have a very large event and maybe it doesn't utilize all the space. So we use a big ballroom. Then you left the rest of the building. You may not have wanted to book 110s, 120s when there is a very, very large event going on, depending on how. So some of it's strategic as well. Tax revenue collections. This continues to just boggle me as we are outpacing forecast. So as you can see, the 2020 forecast there is the second column on the right. The third is there, the very far right one is the budget for 2024. And then you can see that we're outpacing currently what the budget would be, and then also outpacing our forecast. So we continue to have really great months on the tax collection side and the revenues. A lot of that is ADR, just when it comes down to the numbers when you look at it. So this was another new slide that me and Dan reworked on. I still want to provide a little more information or data here. It just feels, again, you guys, please give me feedback if you feel the same way. The stuff that jump out to me is just you look at 2024, you see a big orange on the capital there. That was that January carryover from those December projects where we spent a lot of capital funds, in particular for larger projects like the carpet and some procuring some equipment for our loading dock for safety security. Operating has kind of bounced all over. That's one that I am digging more and more into, and I was talking to Stephanie about it before this presentation, because I want a little bit more of an understanding of what causes those operating transfers to be kind of all over the place. Anne-Marie has kind of done that, and she's been able to speak to that in the past. It's something that I want to become a little bit more educated in myself. Nothing concerning there, just I notice that there's a lot of variance in between when that happens. So, and then bond payments look all pretty much standard. I tend to pay attention to March there at the top, and you kind of look over the last 3 or 4 years, we're pretty much right in line with all of our other month-to-month bond payment. I'll allow Stephanie kind of speak to this one because there was one, this is where we kind of were, do we go with a whole new slide? Probably by next month. This is our investment slide from Clearwater. We met with Clearwater towards the end of the, I think it was middle of the week last week, and got full trained on how to use the reporting. There's a lot of features in there, very similar to Ungerbach and what the system we use. I need a little more time to master that, and I believe we're going to have much more information to report on from the investment side. You have the percent number, correct, that we
I have the income. Last month, the board had asked for, or just, they were interested about the interest income. And because it wasn't anything that was being reported in the Excel spreadsheet, that it wasn't, we're really wanting to redo these to where it's more informative. And working with Clearwater, they are, I've just sent over our GL codes to them. There are ways that they are able to code and automate that reporting system for us, to where it does take out the fat fingers and the misreporting and that kind of stuff. So really excited about working with them. They've been great. So you'll see that moving forward, where we'll be able to show the interest income on a monthly basis and what the percentage of it is based upon our fixed income and our metrics there. So
It's really just a timing challenge on our end. We're getting the information at very late in the last of the week, headed out of town. Again, next month's slide, we'll have a lot more information and we'll make sure we're tracking that interest income. So, cash positions is always the one that everybody wants to know where we're at. We're sitting at about 26 million in total cash. Rest of those numbers are all based off stabilization restricted funds, cash available for projects based off, take out the $6 million stabilization. Again, this is just a pretty standard slide that gets updated month to month with mostly that cash balance there under the top. With that, I stand for any questions.
Any questions? Any feedback on the reports and slides and?
I like the new ones. Good. There is one on there that you said you were looking into, but somehow January was below December.
Which one are we
I
talking?
guess,
Wasn't needed.
one more. One more.
That one
No, it's
has,
further forward.
this one has 4 years, the one you were just on. It has 4 years, but only 3 lines.
Because this is fiscal year. So December 21 is our fiscal year. So that's why I have that in a different color there. That would have been the beginning of 22's fiscal year. That's why I'm showing it that way.
Further ahead in the treasurer's report on maybe transfers.
Yeah, January is the one that I was trying to describe there, is that bright orange, that capital transfer in 24 was because of the December 23 carry. That number at the bottom of the blue at the bottom there of 24 is December of 23. A lot of that carried over because of projects that didn't quite get done in fiscal year 23 and had to be purchased into fiscal year 24. January, most of those hit. So
And from for the ADR, go to that one. Like,
under hotel occupancy,
I mean, yeah, occupancy and ADR. I'd like to see percentage.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if that would help anybody else, like percentage, where are we? Are we up, you know, year over year?
I like that one as well. Please feel free to email me any other feedback you guys have on the slides. That type of feedback is great for us to have. I know we're looking forward to be able to update all of these slides as we go forward in a way that they become as useful for you guys from a quick reporting feature that gives you, whether it's the percentages or you like seeing the graph or number.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, I don't know, I like percentages. Are we trending up, trending down? By how much? We're blowing things out of the water? Are we falling behind?
Okay. Do that.
Kind of the same thing with like the treasurer's report. I mean, but you're gonna be looking at that, right?
Yep.
On some of the,
Yeah, I like all the changes wherever you see the opportunity to take information or other way around. To take data, make information out of it, I think it serves the board well.
Thank you.
I know from my perspective, it's like, can we catch anything before it's starting to be a problem? Are we, you know, and for me.
Is there a red flag? Is
Is
there?
it ag or something we need to pay attention to? I mean, like, this is great, but it's like a lot, no numbers. My brain.
That's a great
like,
point, yes. Oh, good point.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to, be honestly, when I look at this one, because I look at the STR report, I look at a very large spreadsheet. And that's where I gain the percentages. So I'm pretty much like you in that way. Where the percentages would help me see that as well.
All right, anything else? Entertain a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Yes,
All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed? All right. On to other business, Ally. I never should have brought this up, Cody, before, but I know we have aquatics and lobbies in-house, but no updates. Right?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. We should have done
Make
that.
sure in the future we add that both.
Pause for anyone else to get a treat.
could resist. I'm gonna regret this, but I'm doing it.
It's got a
For
little
someone
fruit
to
with it.
take like the chocolate blooming onion in the middle there and try to eat that in the middle of the meeting.
Glad I didn't see that.
It's pretty. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Nice to see a couple of you again after just this weekend. I do want to take a minute to say also thanks, echo Cody. Just appreciate your support, Cody's support, and heading out to the Chamber Leadership Conference. It was this is my second time there, so I don't have a lot to compare to, but it just seemed like a really great turnout, lots of energy. Turns out it's a really competitive group. That Idaho trivia night was legit, right? TMs, I think, contributed to the
Pouring salt into
competitive
the wound.
atmosphere. No, it was a lot of fun. Great content. I learned a lot about energy, a lot that I never thought I would know about energy, but really exciting to see kind of where the state is going in that really important industry. Today, I was giving updates on sales team efforts, kind of how we're looking in 2024, what's trending for 2025. We'll start off with our 2024 key performance indicators, looking at things like leads, contracts, and other sales activities. Starting off with our sales team activities year to date, and this was reported December through March. I realize we're already almost through the better part of April, but just for consistency through March. Leads, and again, Kristen, to your point, I'll be more careful to bring in more percentages in my following slides, but I will speak to the percentages here. Just over 100 leads year to date. That's about 20% down compared to same period last year. CVB is seeing a slowdown in lead volume as well. What is skewing that number slightly is the sales team was fielding a lot of non-convention inquiries last year as we were onboarding new event team members. And so there's a bit of that contributing to the inflated numbers from last year, although, you know, not a ton. We'll still be slightly down. If we were to omit some of those non-convention leads from March last year, we're still about 13% down, although it's kind of what the market is seeing right now. On the flip side, site visits are way up. We're up about 109% compared to same period last year. Our customer advisory board that partner on with the CVB gave some really great feedback at their last meeting. Recommended that Visit Boise really start marketing and communicating with planners that they do offer and host site visits. I think we all just sort of assumed that was the norm for destinations, and their feedback is it wasn't, and Christy might be able to speak to that. So they've done a phenomenal job really getting that message out. Planners are taking advantage of it, and we're definitely seeing it in the numbers so far, being up over 100% year over year. So that's great. I'll dive into contracts. Contracts are looking good. We set some pretty lofty goals for the sales team this year. What we're looking at are the targets for the value of contracts we're confirming in the year for future business. So we're about a third of the way or more on our target for the team. We're also trending up year over year on contracts confirmed, revenues, future booked revenues up by 7%, future booked room nights up by 41%, future booked economic impact up by 34%. So looking really good there. This slide, and again, I will go Cody's route and do more graphics. Next, lots of numbers here, but all looking really good. These numbers reflect events that have taken place in the building so far year to date. And then the targets that we've set for the building. I'll adjust the economic impact goal as well. But in really good shape as we're a quarter of the way through the year. Room nights starts off slow. That's pretty typical. December and January generally being a slower convention month, but we'll definitely see that number tick up as the year goes on. We've got a really busy summer coming up and some huge room night generating events that will be coming through the building through the rest of the year. So if we were to fast forward to the end of the year, this is what we're looking like as far as attaining our targets. You know, exceeding in all categories. Local events is down, but that's nothing to be concerned about right now. This is just based on what's actualized in our forecast for the remainder of the year. So local events will continue to come in, continue to book, and so that number is just going to increase as the weeks and months go on. So we're in really good shape to meeting our targets. I'll pause for a second and answer any questions because I know we just ran through a lot of numbers. Okay. So shifting gears to client events, this is a few of the things that we've hosted so far through March. Association Management Inc. is a third-party company. They're based in Gig Harbor, Washington, and they represent a number of associations. They're typically staffed as an executive director for the association, and so they oversee sourcing, site selection, you know, contract negotiation, meeting planning, and we hosted a joint presentation with the Visit Boise sales team earlier in March. We had 11 of the AMI reps join that call and really kind of kept it conversational, went through a nice slide deck, talked about how affordable we are, the coffee price. That's just resonates with everyone. The new hotels coming online is just a great topic of conversation with Hotel Renegade and the AC Element product that will be coming on in the next few years. And then we also took the opportunity to promote Meetings Today Live West. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple slides, but that's an industry event coming through Boise this summer. AMI has been a great partner so far, and I think, you know, I'm confident we'll see some future business out of them. Established group for us. They rotate through here about every few years, Pacific Northwest Clean Water Association. In fact, at our sales team this morning, we were already talking about their 2027 and 2030 dates, but they will be so this September. And actually, since this presentation was completed, we had Washington State Society for Healthcare Engineering confirmed for October of 25. Really nice piece of business, $70,000 in revenue and over 900 room nights for that group. So, you know, just taking the opportunity to really continue to build our network of Boise ambassadors. We actually had one of the AMI people that on this call join us the following week for the Treefort Fam. So building up some great momentum there. On the Treefort Fam, this was a really great partnership with Visit Boise and Block 22. Hotel 43 was a host hotel. And we also collaborated with Meeting Professionals International, the Rocky Mountain chapter which is based in the Denver area, as well as the Northwest chapters. And they helped us with recruitment, getting the word out, collecting applications, which were then vetted by the CBB. And so it's just a really helpful avenue for us to communicate with those MPI members and promoting and getting those applications trickled in. It's also, of course, a really great collaboration with the folks at Treefort. I like this picture here. This was a reception that we held on the rooftop at Hap Hap Lounge. If y'all haven't been there, it's above their music hall space. And we had a couple of the co-founders, Sarah Payne and Eric Gilbert, just give an overview for the group how Treefort came to be, you know, the logistical challenges that they face as event planners, you know, and they were, of course, speaking the language of the group. And so it was really cool just to see the Q&A. I mean, I just love, we got the hands being raised here. And so everyone was just super engaged, and it was a great afternoon with them. They also gave us a behind the scenes tour of the music hall space, which is just, I think, a tremendous asset to have in Boise as an offsite venue for groups that are even coming through Boise Center. We had 8 planners for this FAM, representing everything from association to corporate events and third-party planners. We also incorporated an opening reception at House of Western and invited some of the local planners. We really wanted to make sure that the people coming in for the FAM got a lot of value out of their time here. And so, again, those sort of educational type opportunities to engage with Treefort, also meet with new planners to really get their firsthand, perspective on the destination in our space. The CVB mapped out a really great downtown walking tour. So they were able to at least see where the hotels were in relation to the convention center. Just, experience how walkable downtown is. And this is in front of Jump. I'm sure anyone that's attended Treefort has seen these eyes skating around the festival. And of course, you have to take the opportunity to get a photo with them. But the group, you can see it just really, really enjoyed their time here. The tour finished with lunch at Boise Center. We've got Cody and Julie joining us here, welcoming the group, and really just couldn't ask for a better weekend. The weather was great. The plaza was activated, but there was the free stage, and so downtown was just incredibly vibrant. And I will say, I think Treefort or not, it definitely having them here dispelled some perceptions I think that some people have about Boise and Idaho, and people just commented on how friendly everyone was, and that's whether Treefort is happening or not. So we did, again, we hosted the lunch inside. It was actually inside our east kitchen. Every other inch of space was contracted, and so we took the opportunity to bring in our culinary staff. The clients, they were able to watch some live prep and plating. Our sous chef here, Matt Jennings, spoke to the group about the products that we source, how the menu comes together. And so there was some really nice conversation there. Of course, how we support local products, and just couldn't really be more pleased with how we were supported by our team to execute this event in the kitchen. It was really, really great. A couple more events through the end of the year. We will have a virtual CAB meeting coming up in May, as well as an in-person in September. I'll report more on that in my next presentation. But this summer, we are excited to welcome Meetings Today, Live West. This is an event that travels around the region. They go to places like Las Vegas, Denver, Palm Springs, and Andrew and I, our goal has really been to target some of these industry events and bring them into Boise. No worries.
It's the alarm to go pick up my kid. He's fine.
Okay. So our goal is to have about 35 planners, 35 suppliers here. We're partnering, of course, with Visit Boise and Hotel Renegades Host Hotel on this event. I'll be attending this program, their national version in San Antonio this weekend, and we'll have an opportunity to promote more there. But things are looking good. So far, we have about 20 or more applicants probably by now from planners to attend. Meetings Today's done a really great job promoting. I just wanted to pull one of their quotes here, and of course, you should read it for yourself, but from one of their email blasts touting Boise as rising as one of America's hottest destinations. Of course, our inviting meeting spaces, walkability, and our after-hour scene. I think that speaks volumes. I mean, you go to other downtowns, and in fact, I had a call with someone that's been in the industry for a number of years, who oversees convention centers in anywhere from small to large destinations. A lot of those large destinations are struggling because those convention centers have just seen, company workers are working from home now. It's just causing restaurants to close. And then there's this sort of conundrum that, convention centers don't have experience outside their doors anymore that they were previously able to, kind of tout. So we're very lucky here to have what we have going on. And the agenda is going to be great. We've got breakfast and appointments at the convention center, some events happening at various hotels, excursions out to Sunny Slope, and whitewater rafting. And we're also doing something at the Warehouse Food Hall. So it should be Should be phenomenal. Actually, and Sherry Hess with Freeman, we're continuing to lean into that campus concept. She, I believe, is confirmed as a speaker. She'll, give an overview to the group of what Freeman did to execute their campus, their sales leadership meeting that was here in last summer. Any questions on our events?
Are you having any issues with getting hotel rooms for some of those larger hotel room night conventions coming in?
Like the blocks for, yeah, that continues to be.
And then for the planners, how much of an issue is that still?
Oh, it's a big challenge for sure. I had a call with someone from Conference Direct last week, and he recognized the fact that our hotel package is what it is, and he's never been here. And it takes a unique group and someone that's open to that experience of splitting their attendees to multiple properties. I think the trick is getting them here to see again just how walkable it is. How nice it is downtown. And so that's why we have a big push to bring sort of these industry events to Boise. Yeah, I mean, we love our hotel partners are great, and I think they give what they can when they can. They also just have to balance that with the demand that they see that, non-group business, transient, everything. So busy travel schedule. This is, packed spring and summer travel. I'll highlight a few of these. The team did just return from Industry Exchange. Linda and Kay were out there. That took place in Chicago. It's an MPI Chicago chapter event, and Boise Center has been the main sponsor now for 2 years. And we're hopeful to continue that partnership next year. But really focusing on that Chicago market, which is heavy association business. I think, we'll find a lot of value the more we continue to engage face-to-face with them. And it's actually a really, I would say, call it affordable. I think you get a lot of bang for your buck to get in front of that audience at that particular event. ASE, we've been attending for a number of years now with Visit Boise IMEX. Visit Boise has expanded the footprint to 20 by 20 for the first time, which will be really exciting. I think we saw a lot of traffic come through last year and have some really exciting, promotional opportunities that will be coming together for this year's event. Small and boutique meetings is a new one we added. Linda will be attending this one in October, and I'm kind of earmarking this one as a potential to, see if it would make sense to bring to Boise. Other suppliers that attend include Salem Convention Center. We've got representation there from Phoenix, which we compete with, a lot. Park City, El Paso. So I think we'll be, we'll kind of be among our peers at that particular event. Okay, kind of getting into the meat of the program here. The 2025 outlook. Putting this in a graphic could be a bit challenging, but what I want the takeaway to be here is we are still down. This is what we're looking at as our future forecasted room nights, definite room nights. We are pacing down compared to where we were this time last year. So we're looking at room nights on the books for 2025. Now we had been down as high as about 65%. We've definitely closed the gap. We're now at about 33% down. But what I want to point out, and I think this maybe kind of came up at the last meeting, is that we do have some, these impact events that have caused the 2024 room nights to be so high. Daughters of the Nile is one of them. That alone has over 4,000 room nights. And that's like, you consider that like a once in every 10-year kind of event for Boise Center. So that's happening this year. We also have COVID rebooks that are still happening in 2024. I think after this year, they're all done, we're through the COVID rebooks. But so we have those, and actually 2 in June, NatMec and NACER. You add that to Daughters of the Nile, all taking place in June. Those are over 6,000 room nights. And so if we were just to kind of take away those 3 events, we'd be exactly in line with where we were this time last year, looking into 2025. So not anything we're terribly alarmed about, and I actually am hearing this through Kay. Someone at the state was saying flat is the new normal. You know, the state's seeing a little bit of a leveling off. I say it's the new normal because when we compare it to pre-COVID years, we're actually still in really good shape. I'll explain what we're looking at here. So if we were to hop into a time machine, this is reported as of April 2nd. If we were to hop into a time machine and go back to April 2nd of 2018, we had 4,810 definite room nights on the books for 2019. We go into April 2nd of 2019, we had 10,390 room nights on the books for 2020. So you see, we're well ahead of where we were in 2018. We're still even ahead of where we were in 19. You know, 2024 just happens to be that it's just a banner. It's a banner year for room nights. And then on the bottom numbers that we're looking at, those are the definite room nights. And then we also add in the tentative room night pipeline. Again, still in really good shape with where we are looking into 2025. We have combined over 28,000 room nights on the books for 2025, pacing ahead by 14%. If we were looking, you know, standing in 2018, pacing ahead by 15% for standing in 2019. Does that all make sense? Okay. So again, like Cody said, we're going to continue to watch it. But I do anticipate we'll still see a really healthy room night year in 2025. We just don't have it front loaded.
What was the big April room night generator?
For 2025, we have Northrop Grumman on the books. It's 1,400 room nights. This year, is that what you were asking? Okay, yeah, Northrop Grumman is the big one for next year. And actually I have them as a highlighted group for 2025. So that's a new event for us. Again, 1,400 room nights in April. I won't go through all of these. I did want to focus on Solution Tree. We've got a number 1 and a number 2. So they're definite in June, and we also have a pending for them in July. I like the story with Solution Tree. Well, actually, I'll back up a little bit. Combined, those 2 Solution Tree events have about 1,600 room nights and over $275,000 in revenue. It is an account that Kay has been working on for a few years now. We've lost, I don't know, 4 or 5 opportunities with them. And actually, she arranged for the client to meet with her and Nathan Hunley, who's with the Grove Hotel at IMEX last year. And so just getting that face-to-face, they were actually able to hammer out some of the issues that she was having with our bids, you know, collectively as a destination. Sometimes our dates weren't available. We just couldn't line it up. Turns out her attrition clause at the hotel was just a really sticking point. But once they got in person, they were able to kind of hammer it out. And so it's resulted in some, you know, 1 really great piece of business, potentially even 2 for next year. So we can't always tell that story. We don't always know how it, you know, trace it all back. But in this case, it was just kind of a, you know, a neat circumstance that I want to share with you all. So closing it out, the industry chatter right now, pricing. Pricing is a big issue. And there was a survey that Nolan conducted with Conference Direct. And what we're looking at here is the ranking of main areas of dissatisfaction that planners have with hotels and event venues. And cost is overwhelmingly the top hurdle for them. We see cost falling into our top 3 reasons of why, you know, we lose convention opportunities. It's our number 3. The number 1 reason is just continues to be date availability. Number 2, client is just unresponsive, and this is frustrating because we ultimately don't know what the reason was. But cost is, you know, for the size we are, we're going to continue to compete with those convention hotels that can waive facility rental just because they're getting, you know, the room revenue. But we do frequently see that comp rental requests as well as for discounts on published rates. We are always, you know, seeking ways to address challenges, certainly encouraging clients to start the sourcing process sooner. we start looking at a future year and maybe even just pencil them in anticipation of their RFP coming out the following year, if we can't get them in for the year that they've asked for. Continuing that face-to-face engagement, we find incredible value there, and we're leaning heavy into that affordability factor. I want to thank Cody for, his support and keeping, if we can keep that $40 per gallon coffee where it is, at least for a little bit, we're incorporating it into our marketing and into our proposals. It's something that we want to really, get them on the hook with that number. And I think it's a great selling factor for us. And if Jim were here, he would ask if we have what we need to address, the rental and the concessions. And I would say we do. We are always asking for the opportunity to address hurdles before we find out it's lost, asking the client to give us the opportunity, or visit Boise to make sure we have, a voice at the table. And there are times when we are completely to waive rental. We did it for a group that we proposed for October of 2025 because it just made great sense to do it. But it's something that, not for every group, we evaluate it based on anticipated performance. So with that, happy to answer any more questions.
What's an example of why something would make sense to waive that fee? Lots of food and beverage to compensate?
Yeah,
Okay.
typically it's gonna be like the food at high room nights or a high revenue. The October example had both. We were estimating about $200,000 in food and beverage alone. I'm starting to lose my voice now. Something was going around. Yeah, but those main things, economic impact and revenue.
And is the CVB kind of seeing the same thing? You said everybody's seeing flattening out.
Yeah, so they're seeing the same thing in terms of, group room nights for 2025. Now, they also shared some updates at an event called Destination Boise. Sorry, give me a second, I feel like I'm gonna start.
Pollen here. It's all the pollen.
That's
Right.
okay.
Got it?
I sure hope so.
So, group room nights are down in 25. They're seeing the same thing, although they'll factor in High Aldi as they should. High Aldi, soccer, they anticipate one of the 2 soccer tournaments coming back in June. And so for room nights overall as a destination, we're actually up next year, but I think High Aldi is a big contributor to that.
Do you see it? What about other centers that you compete with?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying just kind of a normalizing.
So it's regionally, industry-wide. It's not just us, basically.
Yeah, it's not just us. We've sort of put feelers out and,
We're gonna have a good chance to really kind of put that test to the full when we go to IVM in Tacoma. I know that we did our region this year for the first time, did a sales track where we picked one particular day to try to increase more people coming from the sales side. So they created content just specifically for one day where you could register for a one-day session. So there will be a lot of people talking sales at this one in particular that haven't been there in the past. And I look forward to hearing there.
What property you're staying,
It's in Tacoma, it's the Tacoma Convention Center.
but the hotel, just curious.
Hotel,
Across the street or
So
connected
it's,
to
yeah,
it?
the one
There's 2
connected
of
to it. I
them.
gotta look at my phone.
That's my
Yeah. But again, a lot of opportunity there as well with Seattle right next door.
Mhm.
That we're gonna be doing some venue tours and tied into Seattle. I think Tacoma's feeling a little bit from that because they wanted more focus on the Tacoma side. So I heard that from some of the Tacoma people because we did a couple venue tours where we're gonna go into Seattle and look at some of those like Climate Pledge, a few others. So
I was just there, so. It's a different, like you said, the challenges that some of these cities are having, you definitely see it.
Yeah.
In Seattle, you see it.
just for probably FYI for the board, as this July, I move into the director role for the region. So I will take over and be on the board of directors for IAVM at that point in time. It'll give me a whole nother level of access to information at the board level that I probably haven't seen in the past. So I'm looking forward to that too.
I have a clarifying question on the competition side. So that Seattle Convention Center, I don't know if it was an expansion or a new build.
Both.
It's an expansion, but so they rebranded. It was a Washington State Convention Center and they rebranded to Seattle Convention Center. 2 separate buildings, but same operator, same.
I mean, that's one that's very interesting, and I know I've talked to the people that made that happen, and it's something I'm interested in potentially bringing them out to meet the board. The group that found, I mean, downtown Seattle, you're landlocked, so when we say we're landlocked in Boise, you go to Seattle and you're like, how did they build a big convention center right down the street from their large building? They moved headquarter buildings, they moved large other facilities that were within that block to get them to go somewhere else. The city worked on it. There was a very collaborative approach to that, and it's something I think we could learn from. So
Funding was 2 billion if I'm,
yes, we don't have that kind of funding, but yeah, that. Yes. So curious to know how that they do it. That's more than anything. And also I think we might be missing an opportunity if we're not thinking about it in that way, I guess, if we're always looking for that next piece of land that's already not developed or open. This was a very creative approach to getting an expansion done. I'm just curious how they did it. So I'll be meeting with them down in Tacoma as well. So I have a chance to kind of talk with them, get more information, and then see if there's an interest from board side to potentially have them come out and talk. So.
I mean, we see articles all the time of, you know, Fort Worth, I think this morning I was reading, has announced a convention center expansion and, you know, getting support to push that through is gonna require, I think, a 2% increase on their lodging tax. And, you know, I think it's just getting the community support to push that through.
Well, it's good to have those conversations with people. Let us know.
Thank you guys for your support for that, because that's why we're part of all the associations. You guys have supported that for a long time, and I think it pays great dividends, and it will continue to. So,
No reason to reinvent the wheel if we don't have to.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Nice. Cody, update, audit?
Yeah, just real quick, I'll just speak to the audit update. We are very, very close to having a final audit presentation. I missed one step that Jody really wanted to have, which was a pre-presentation meeting, and Bailey had brought that to my attention. Due to the timing with us leaving to go up to the conference, we were kind of pinched with trying to get that meeting done Monday, and we wouldn't have been here, would have been with Jody alone. They both recommended, and mostly came from Bailey, hey, let's wait till one more month. I confirmed with Kristen. So they're gonna be presenting at next month's meeting, the final report. That'll give us time to have everything rather than kind of a, hey, here's where we're at, and then give you guys the final report. We can have the final report in front of you, have Bailey there to speak to it, have us there to speak to the MD&A or any of the other components that you guys have questions about. There's nothing concerning that from their end that I'm seeing, and they've made that statement and email to me that it's not an issue. It's really the process they want. Jody really thought it was the best practice to have a pre-presentation meeting. So I've reached out to schedule that prior to next month's meeting, and then we'll be ready to go.
And you figure out the glass?
The glass is going to be a footnote at this point in time. We're still working through, the glass company is going through, I don't know if I'll share too much information, but they're going through some bankruptcy and some challenges on their end. So the responsive time, I had to literally get to the very, very top of the organization to get somebody to respond. To some
So are they gonna
challenges.
still honor the,
They're going to be giving us some options. So yes, they will still honor the warranty.
Okay.
Now, what I'm asking them to look at is the value of that, because replacing it with another generation of glass that may fail at some point in time is not conducive to the space. And I know I spoke to the board about this, about having boom lifts come in and disrupt our operations. I'd rather do this instead of one at a time, which is what their approach is as they fail, to replace the whole glass. So I've offered, they have some liability on the books based on all of that warranty that they owe us. What would that dollar value amount be to them to replace all that glass? Let's settle on some number. Let us go purchase some new glass that maybe isn't that type of technology up on a fourth floor. Now, nothing, again, that type of glass I think is gonna have its use in many different spaces like convention centers that are on first floors. Fourth floor, that was one that we probably should have thought that through all the way. I'll take some of that because I was helped make some decisions back then as well. But that's one that I just wish we would have had that foresight of how much is that newer technology we didn't know, how long it's really gonna last on the life expectancy, and then replacing it in little one-offs just doesn't make sense. So me and Pat were always very in line with what they call broken glass syndrome, where if you have a broken window, then other things start getting missed and details kind of fall apart. I've got broken glass syndrome, not necessarily that the team's applying that, but there is bubbles in our glass and it just reminds me of that broken glass. And then if the guest sees that, what is their thought? Are they not replacing their glass? They're not fixing it? No, we want to fix it. We just need to do it in the right way, and that's less impactful. So we've gotten creative and done some window cleans. I'll thank Cliff for his support, because it took the glass, the gas that's in between the two panels of gas glows like a glow stick. So as it fails, they tend to light up at night. So we've had to put some film over the top of those to not draw the attention to our glass and kind of reduce that broken glass effect, broken glass syndrome effect. So more to come. The company is going through a very transitionary period where they did just file a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They're planning on continuing to operate though. So I did get a commitment that they're gonna try to work with us, but I haven't heard back on my proposal about what I just talked about. So waiting for more.
Okay,
It'll be a footnote in the
Okay.
audit as per the recommendation of Ed Bailey.
long story short. Yep.
Yes, sorry.
Got it. That's good. Thanks for the update. Okay, anything else on the audit? Nope. All right, moving on. Proposing a new project.
Yep, this is something I spoke about last month and I gave you guys the old version. This is what I have so far. It still has a draft on it. I want to make sure you guys are comfortable. I've got a couple of districts to capitalize and a few words here that me and Mike need to make sure that we're comfortable with the wordsmithing of it. But this is a very close document to the final of what I was trying to put together. Want to get Chase's feedback before I take the draft off it as well, as he sat on that exploratory committee. This is the best I could find as far as I tried to kind of going down other cities that if you were proposing projects, really purpose, identifying what it is that they're trying to accomplish, process, how do you go about this? And then a kind of a succinct step-by-step approach, making them think through each piece of the project, meaning threshold of the criteria, I mean statutorily, does it make sense legally? And then the financial criteria evaluation component, economic and public benefit criteria, and then kind of some additional things to consider for other project specific considerations that are important to us as a district. And then kind of how they would go about potentially scheduling a meeting with us and then potentially getting in front of the board.
Okay, so we'll just take this and.
Yep, any other comments at this point in time? I don't know, we'll ask Mike, we need an action item for this next month to approve, but I don't believe it was in the past, but I'll double check that to make sure that it's accurate.
Any questions about this?
Not from my end.
And I'll work closely with Mary Michael on getting this updated on the district website once we have it all ready to go.
Good. All right,
Questions?
all right. See no other business before the board. The meeting's adjourned.